Hey everybody, this is Carlton Hamilton and we are on the Plan Your Greatness TV channel here on YouTube. And I am here today to talk a little bit more about the book. Let me let you guys see. Here it is. This is How to Plan Your Greatness. So we're gonna go through this book. And we've already gone through the sections already. I got my little notes here. We've already gone through the vision and mission statement. We've already gone through the three questions. I believe I've done that video already. The three questions. And now we're doing the dedication. Again, we've done the three questions, the mission, the vision, or the mission and vision statement, and then we've done the three questions. And so now we're doing the dedication. Now I'd done this one before, but I had to come back and redo it because there's some very specific things that I wanted to share with the dedication. Now, what makes the dedication so powerful is there's a chapter in the book that I talk specifically about my dad. And I don't give a really flattering depiction of him. But in the dedication, I dedicate this book to him. Because I'm going to read this to you. And you're going to get an idea of why I chose my father, even though there's a bit of a strained relationship, even still to this day. That I've made peace with it. But it's just, there's a part of where you just make peace with whatever your rival or whatever it is that you have some, I don't even want to necessarily say animosity toward, because I'm going to talk a little bit about that later on. There's a quote that I mentioned later on in the book that sums up, how I feel as far as where people I believe that were obstacles in my life, how I look at them now. I had to come to grips and to peace with that. But again, this dedication part of the book, to some people, they'll say, why didn't you dedicate this to your mom? She's gotten enough. My mom knows. My mom knows how much she means to me and in my life and what she's done for all 9 of us and how she was able to get us on the right path despite all the stuff that was going on with my father. So let me read this to you. If I'm looking down, please forgive me, but I want to read this to you. I'm going to try to look up as much as I can as I'm reading this dedication. And then I'm going to go in and talk a little bit more about, this dedication and why I dedicated it to my dad. I say, within these pages, a not so flattering, dedicated chapter of my father's influence on the impressionable years of my life. I can say without hesitation, I truly despised him growing up. However, his lack of attention to me has been an integral part of my journey and my evolution to the person that I am today. I made sure I did not want his name anywhere near my firstborn child's name. 2 of my older siblings blessed their children with his name. To this day, I do not completely understand why they did that. My son's middle name is Andale, a shortened version of my mother's name, Andeline. Appropriately, as explained in the book, she was more than a source of inspiration throughout my life. His presence was impactful in multiple other ways. I grew to be like my father, stubborn, violent, sensitive, and hard to read. All these attributes were useful in sports and in all things competitive throughout my life. And during the mental crucible, like that word, of American incarceration. The search for my father's love was a key in my motivation to excel. His absence as I became a dominant athlete was excruciatingly painful. As the intense heat and pressure converts a lump of coal beneath the African soil into diamonds, so has been my journey of how I plan my greatness. What my father gave me, he also withheld from me. Too often we are too young to grasp the lessons learned and the lessons presented to us. It's wrapped in demanding work and the uncomfortableness of circumstances. Either way, thank you, Dad. Love, Carl. All right. So that's the dedication part that I dedicated to my dad. And I felt it was important because, as you see, I mentioned in there all the attributes that he gave to me that came out at various times throughout high school, college, professional baseball, when I went to prison, when I got out and eventually got my college degree. And these are things that internal that I don't even think about every day, but I use them as far as in business or just anything that I'm doing. There's a lot of my dad in there. We're faced with a bunch of things in our lives. And what I learned is something that was instilled in me from my father was, how do you respond? How do you respond? How did I respond? And I was thinking about this earlier today. When you look at somebody, their experiences in life, the lessons that they learn, and then what you see from those lessons. So let's look at that again. So the experiences that people have had, the things that they learned, the knowledge that they attained from that, and then how did they apply that? Their life is a direct reflection of all of that. And when you look at somebody, you're going to look and you're going to see one of two things. You're going to either see them having learned and applied those lessons, or they have not. They're either going to show growth in the application of those lessons, or they're going to make excuses. And in my instance, I always got upset, but I went and applied something to it, even though it got to the point where it actually ended me up in prison. But there was an action-oriented way that I was going about trying to solve my problems. I never sulked and just got really mad and did nothing. I always did something. I always took some sort of action. The other thing is, me making this dedication to my father was a revelation of looking at both my parents and saying that they did the best that they could based on their own childhood trauma, and all the things that went in their life. What we tend to do as adults, when we look back at what we think our parents should have done, we grade them unfairly. What we do is we say that old saying of hindsight is 20/20. We go back and we try to say, well, you should have done this and should have done this and should have done this and should have done that. Absolutely, completely disregarding what they were bringing to the table. And then I've seen other people just go, well, they should have known, they should have done this, and well, they should have. I go, look at all the dumb stuff you're doing in your life right now. I could easily look at you and I could say, well, don't you know better? Regardless on whatever your parents gave you, don't you know better to make better decisions? Once I understood that, then it was very easy for me to go, oh, Mom, Dad, I love you and I forgive you. Now, because my mom was always there to comfort me and to guide me throughout this process, even though my dad was still in the house, I can love and forgive them, but there's really nothing else for me to share and say with my dad. Because I've learned that right now my dad's 88 and he's starting to lose his faculty. So there's really nothing for me to try to ask him or confront him about. And when I did that 25 years ago, as far as confronting him and asking him about that, my dad just stood 10 toes down. He's just like, you got what you got. So that's when I basically said, I love you. We cleared this up maybe about 5 years ago. I basically, that dedication letter was almost not word for word, but very close to what I shared with him, just saying, you know what, there was a time where I hated your guts. But I love you because I know you were doing the best you could. And there's some situations I'm going to talk specifically about that happened in my life that I looked at him and I said, he did the best he could. There was nothing else for me to expect of him. Now, as a child, children tend to have unrealistic expectations of what they think a parent should do. But as you get older, you've got to come to a realization and go, I'm placing unfair, unrealistic expectation on this parent. That parent came to the table with a limited toolbox. It wasn't full. And they did the best that they could. So with that in mind, that's why I've actually learned to love him, forgive him, and then just move on with the rest of my life. You know, and so those were, as I look back at that, realizing that my expectations were unrealistic, because where did I get them from? I got them from the world and saying that every dad should do this, 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 and this. And if you don't do that, then you're going to be a failure. And that model never takes into account what these parents have been through to get to the point of raising kids. I remember having a conversation with my mom, and I called her on the phone, and literally as soon as she picked up the phone and said hello, I said, how'd you do it? And she was like, what? Like, what are you talking about? I said, how did you do it? I said, I'm over here raising 2 kids. And I said, you raised 9. And yes, it was a slightly dysfunctional home, but my father was always there. My mom always provided everything that we needed through my dad. She was a stay-at-home mom. And looking today at all my brothers and sisters, they're all hot. Most of them are high-end wage earners. The majority of them. We've got aerospace engineers. We got electricians. We got heavy crane operators. We got nurses. We've got nurses assistants. We've got the whole range. Multiple college graduates. And my mom did all that barely graduating from high school. I remember when my mom went back and got her GED. I remember that. She went to night school to do that. Now think about that. She's raising all these kids. I'm number 7. My little brother is in the picture. So there's all 9 of these kids running around doing everything. And every day and every night or whatever she's doing, she's studying, and then she's going, she didn't even know how to drive at the time, I think. One of my brothers or whatever, or my dad would have to take her to these night classes. She would take the night classes. She was getting out real late. It was 9:30, 10. I remember it was pitch dark a lot of times when I would go with my brothers to go pick her up from her classes. But my mom went back and got her GED. Why she got it, I don't know. But, you know, it showed that, you know, that's something within me that I saw her pursuing that goal, along with all the things that I got from my father. But I watched my mom do that, and then, you know, I look back on it now, I go, she didn't need to go back and get that, but evidently it was something that she wanted to do. So, again, just realizing that this dedication to my dad meant a lot to me. I don't even know how much it meant to him. You know, he's had the book. I don't really talk to him that much, but I know he's proud of me as far as how I've turned my life around, because I was heading down a really bad road when I got in all that trouble and ended up going to prison. But again, I mentioned this before. Those were the people, specifically my grandmother, my mother, and then for my father, just kind of on the periphery, to let him know and to show him that, hey, I'm not this wild kid that just went off the rails and stayed off the rails. I got back on the track, hit that, you know, old engine, put that coal up in there, and start moving this sucker, you know, 1,000 miles an hour down the track. And so now I've straightened everything out, and now I'm moving on. And so with that said, that dedication was, as I thought about it, and I'm sure I thought about it back in prison before I even made the commitment to doing it. Now it was like, I'm going to show him. So, and again, as I showed him, what I realized I showed myself is I had things in me that he gave me, And so I was able to put those things in motion and start planning my greatness. All right? I'm going to leave you with what I leave you with every day that I'm on here. And that is plan your greatness. You know why? Because no one else will. I'll see you all next time.